Varun Agarwal is a filmmaker, entrepreneur, and a best-selling author. He's 25 years old and has 3 companies to his credit: Alma Mater, Reticular, and Last Minute Films. His company, Alma Mater, is India's largest provider of merchandise and memorabilia to schools and colleges. As a filmmaker, he has directed the likes of Preeti Zinta and A.R. Rahman in music videos, and his films have over 1 million views on YouTube. His debut novel, How I Braved Anu Auntie and co-founded a $1 million company, became a national bestseller within a month of its release and is already in its 3rd print. He has been featured on the cover of India Today, the New York Times, and numerous other periodicals, as well as on the CNBC Young Turks show. Varun has given lectures at various colleges, including IIMB. Ladies and gentlemen, Varun Agarwal. Aditya Mukherjee is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore. He works for a management consulting firm in Delhi. Boomtown is his first novel, although he has published various articles and short stories in newspapers and magazines. Aditya Mukherjee. Lavanya Sankaran's debut novel, The Hope Factory, was selected by Amazon UK as a top pick and awarded rave reviews worldwide. Her first book, The Red Carpet, a critically acclaimed short story collection, spent 2 years on the bestseller lists. Lavanya sponsors an annual writing fellowship at the Sangam Writers' Residency to encourage new writers in India. We welcome Madam Lavanya Sankaran. The moderator for the session is Vani Mahesh. She is the founder of EasyLib.com, the first online library in India. A software engineer turned entrepreneur, Vani is a freelance writer with Amar Chitra Katha. She has written the story for their creation tales, stories from Brahma Purana. She is now working on a set of comics on the Saptarishis. A book reviewer with Deccan Herald and a columnist with DNA, Vani has also contributed articles to Chicken Soup for the Indian Soul and Life Stories, an anthology by Life Positive magazine. I'll request Vani Mahesh to continue with the session.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you and our panelists today. And I know many of you might be wondering about the title of this session, The First Book Club. And as our compeer already explained a little bit, we have 3 writers with us today whose very first books have gone on to being runaway successes. So today in this session, we are going to talk to them, interact with them, and learn what their success mantra was and how they achieved their success. So, and now, welcome again. Without much further ado, over to the discussion. We have Aditya and Lavanya, who had, probably when they wrote their books, really pressing daytime jobs. And Varun, who was really busy being an entrepreneur. And in the middle of all this, how did you find the time to write a book? And why did you write this book? Shall we start with Aditya?
Check. Okay. So the secret is that you have to want to be a writer before you have your pressing day job. So it has to be something that's already in motion, a long-standing passion, right? Because to be very frank, I mean, it's not very logical to want to write a book. It's not necessarily going to give you great success. You have to spend time away from your family and friends, from sunlight. So it's not necessarily something that's going to be very enjoyable unless that's a passion for you, right? And if it is a passion for you, then you find time. Because things that other people find enjoyable, you will not find as enjoyable as writing, right? So that's where the time comes from. I mean, when people are out having fun, you are with your computer having fun. So, and I have one secret mantra for success, which is I don't watch TV, and that saves an incredible amount of time. So.
Lavanya?
So I think I'd agree with Aditya, which is, I've been a reader since before I could walk, I think. And I've been writing ever since I was a child. And not writing very well, but still keeping at it. And in between, I did many things. I finished my education. I went to the US. I studied more there. I worked at an investment bank in New York. I came back to India. I worked as a consultant. I mean, all these other things that ultimately fell to the wayside. And the day I had a small baby was the day I looked at myself and I said, I'm going to give myself a year to write. And this is what I did. And when my baby was 6 weeks old, I wrote the first sentence where finally I said, this is it. This is my voice. This is not like any other book I've been reading. And that became this book. But I didn't know at that time that it would become The Red Carpet. I wrote one story, then I wrote another story, then I tried my hand writing a novel, which went onto a bookshelf after 6 months of effort and has never seen the light of day. Then I wrote another 2 stories. You know, many of them didn't work out, but then when I finally got 2 short stories that I liked, I kind of went on a journey with it, which is really a very unlikely journey. I mean, I don't think it's a sort of, I can't give anyone a how-to, because frankly, I stumbled from one discovery to another. You know, I thought to myself, okay, now I feel like I want my writing to deepen. What shall I do? So I went to a workshop in the US. No reason why the US, it just seemed like a good idea. I knew there were good writing workshops. So it was a 2-week workshop. And someone there said, you know what, you should show it to an agent because your 2 stories are really quite decent. And then I flew to Hawaii, not for the reasons that people normally go to Hawaii, which is to have a fantastic holiday. I went because I heard that there was a fantastic seminar there, a conference where agents came to meet writers. And I said, this is great. This is exactly what I need. So I fly all the way out to Hawaii, and I find that the conference that I end up in, the Maui Writers Conference, is actually geared for writers of mysteries and romances. And I have not written a mystery, and I have not written romances. I had 2 short stories about my home city of Bangalore. So agents who met me there said, what are you doing here? What on earth is a writer of stories about India doing in a, romance and mystery writers conference? But many of them had, these large agencies where in addition to looking at genre fiction, they also looked at literary fiction. So 5 of them got interested, just based on these 2 stories. So I flew back to New York, met again with 3 of them, and then finally signed on with my agent, who then was like a big guardian angel, She said to me, go back to Bangalore, finish writing your book, and I'll take care of everything else. And that's kind of what I did. I came back, and it took me 2 years to finish the other 6 stories that would become part of The Red Carpet. And then the journey continued very strangely, because then I sent the book to her in New York. And then she said, have no expectations of this, because short stories do not sell. This is a very tough market. Jhumpa Lahiri got rejected from 20 publishers before she could sell Interpreter of Melodies. Nobody likes short stories, so even though I like them, keep your expectations very low. And then 1 week later, she called me and she said, there's a lot of interest. You better fly out here. So I flew to New York, and then she had set up this 3-day auction with 9 publishers. And, it was extraordinary because after 3 days of bids coming in, she sold it for, a very decent amount to Random House. And they bought the next book as well, which then became my first novel, which was The Hope Factory. And all I remember about this process is how unexpected it was, how I could not have ever planned for that kind of success. All I wanted to do was just complete my book. And because it was set in Bangalore, I wanted it to be true to Bangalore. That was my simple agenda. I mean, I had no idea that someone in other countries or anything might be responding to it. So it was kind of a very magical, unplanned for enterprise, which I could not really have anticipated. It was a big gift.
Great, we are all glad it worked out so beautifully for you. And now, Varun, what has been your journey like?
Oh, I think it's a miracle that I was able to write a book. Uh, I still have no clue how I managed to do it. Uh, 50,000 words go into writing a book. The most number of words I'd ever written before that was 500 words in my school composition. So, and then I Googled how to write a novel, because apparently there's some rules: single spacing, double spacing, Microsoft Word, spell check, all of that. Had no clue about any of that. And it's really difficult. I wrote my book when I was 23. It's really difficult for a 23-year-old guy to sit down all alone and write something, especially in today's day and age, where you have Facebook, you have Twitter, your friends who are partying all the time, or you're something or the other that's happening. For someone my age, it's really difficult to sit down, shut everything out, shut your phone more importantly, and actually sit down and write. So it's an absolute miracle. I really hope I can write another one.
But why? What made you do that?
So basically, I read a lot of blogs about how we started our company. And a lot of people started writing to me and saying that, your blogs are very nice, and it started getting very popular. So then, someone suggested that you should write a book. And I had never written before that, so I really didn't know whether I would be able to write it. So I gave it a shot. I felt sick. I had a flu, so I was homebound for like 15 days, couldn't do anything. And that's when I managed to write it. Since it was a true story, I didn't have to think much of a plot or anything of that sort. I finished the manuscript. It had around 1,200 spell checks, which took me a long time to actually. But then I found out that they have people in the publishing house who actually do this for you, so you don't have to do it. And there were a lot of grammatical errors. And then I thought that there's a copy editor who sits and does all of that. So the writer's job is actually very easy. You just tell the story, and the editors will take care of all the nitty-gritties. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know, I said.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I mean, I wish Google would have told me this. I wish it would have said, don't worry, just send in a manuscript and everything else would be taken care of. And and after the 400 spell check, I really gave up. I'm like, there's no way I can do anything more. So after that, I said, let's just send it anyway. I don't know if it'll get published. And I didn't know which publisher to approach, so I Googled publishers India. So the first publisher that showed up, I sent them the manuscript. And again, there was like, you need to send 2 hard copies, spiral bound, in a special format. So I went to the local Xerox shop, Xeroxed it, put it in a spiral bound like a project, sent it. And I thought there's no way they're going to touch that. I thought this looks like a college engineering project or something. But I guess they're really short of books or authors, so that's how I got published. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, that was really interesting. And if I can just in one sentence sum up, probably all these authors already had a story in them that wanted to be told. Maybe that's what made them find the time and the energy and make the sacrifices that they did, and the success followed. And now we can, before we ask them to read a short excerpt from their books, probably we'll have just another quick round of question that is, how do you go about researching for your book? I mean, there is a fair amount of research in both Aditya's and Lavanya's, though it doesn't really show in their books. So how do you go about doing it? And I have another question for Varun, because his doesn't really need much research per se. So Aditya.
Okay. So this book has obviously a lot of cooking, and I am, if I were to be charitable to myself, I can cook omelets, right? So thankfully, I have a mom who is golden fingers. So research for that was basically interview sessions with her. I read a lot of history, and I always have. So that was research for a lot of the topics which are dealing with clash of cultures, right? And it's a long-standing passion of mine. I've stayed abroad as well, and I came back to India. So the idea of the transition the country is going through is something that I'm naturally interested in, and something which catches my eye. So that's not so much research as just observation, I guess. And I'm lucky that I've lived in a lot of cities. So I've lived in Bangalore, I've lived in Gurgaon, I've lived in Delhi. So the places which feature in my book, right, that just comes from my own experiences. The real touchy topic of research here is all thanks to my mom.
Wonderful. And Lavanya, there is a fair bit of land mafia and the land grabbing and, that segment of it. I'm really curious how you went about finding facts about that, strata of society, which is almost, untalkable and unreachable to people like us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Vani's talking about my first novel. Now, for the first book was short stories, and that was taken entirely from what I have observed in my life here. But for the first novel, it covers land acquisition, land sharks, political shenanigans, construction work. I mean, a lot of kind of areas that are not part of my everyday life. So this involved actual research. So Anand, the hero of the Hope Factory, works in a car, in a factory that manufactures parts for cars. So I actually had to visit car factories, and I was taken around to see the entire sort of manufacturing process. I spoke with lawyers who deal with land, who in fact were willing to speak but completely off the record. And one of them actually took me to the registrar's office to see how land is actually bought, farmland, the bribery that happens, the entire sort of the complexity of trying to buy industrial land in a city like Bangalore, which is the same as any big city in India. It's really, it smells foul, and it's not for the faint-hearted, definitely. I was taken through construction sites as well, so there was a lot of research I had to do. This was compulsory if I needed to make the books absolutely real in what it was talking about.
Wonderful. I did learn quite a bit of, the land grabbing deal that goes on in Bangalore after reading Lavanya's Hope Factory. And Varun.
I had to do a lot of research as well.
Into your own life, soul searching.
No, I had to do a lot of research with the aunties, because the book is about aunties.
Aunties, correct.
Now, I had to go for kitty parties, which and uninvited, obviously. And it's very interesting, the Indian kitty party, it has aunties from all over the country. You have Bengali aunties, you have Tambram aunties, you have Marwadi aunties, you have Punjabi aunties. And it's this whole melting pot of cultures that you see. So I had to do a lot of research, and I found that the Indian aunties are the most interesting subject if you actually notice. It's very, very true. They will teach you the art of bargaining. They'll teach you the art of negotiation. They'll teach you the art of branding. I learned how to market my company through kitty parties. Because if you notice, a kitty party is nothing but aunties gossip and tell everyone about whatever is happening, right? That is exactly what Facebook is. Facebook is basically one big kitty party, where everybody's telling everyone what's happening. So I realized that this is a very powerful force, untapped force, the whole Indian auntie movement. And so my research was very, very extensive, and I learned a lot while researching for this book.
Into the auntie dam.
Yes.
All right. Let me see how the aunties will receive you once you get off the podium
Sure.
here.
No, I can't see many aunties. That's why I'm just I'm trying to say whatever comes to my mind.
That's a compliment altogether for everyone gathered here. So now, let me just ask our authors to read an excerpt from their books. Probably we can start from Lavanya this time. Yeah?
Okay.
Just to break the order a little.
Sure.
You're going to be reading from your first collection of short stories, right?
Yeah.
Your first book. All right.
I'm going to be reading the title story of The Red Carpet, just a couple of pages. This particular story is very close to my heart because this was a story that my agent submitted to The Atlantic. And The Atlantic was this magazine that would publish one story a month. There would be 12,000 entries, and they would select 12. And it was such an honor to have the story picked. And I think that really set the ball rolling, in terms of what happened in the future of the book, or how it was received. So let me just read the first 2 pages of it. The Red Carpet. Rangappa was content to live in a realm of different names. Officially, as per his 1-page biodata, prepared for a small sum by one of the roadside typists who serviced the lawyers outside Bangalore's Mayo Hall, his name was T.R. Gavirangappa. Tarikeri Ranganatha Gavirangappa. Anyone reading his name would instantly know that he hailed from the village of Tarikeri, near the hills of Chikmagalur, and that he was the son of Ranganatha. His family called him Rangappa for short. But at work, he was known as Raju. This nominal transformation was announced to him quite casually at the end of his job interview. Your driving test was satisfactory, his prospective employer said. The job is yours, provided you are courteous, prompt, and steady in your habits. And then, oh, and on the job, you will be called Raju. It had not really occurred to him to protest. So everyone in the house, from the cook to his employer's little 3-year-old daughter, called him Raju. It had taken him 3 days to get used to it. And after a while, he had even begun to like it. There was a film star called Raju. It was that kind of name, snappy, spry, a certain air about it. After many months on the job, he suggested to his family that perhaps they too should consider calling him Raju. But his father laughed at him, and that was that. He had heard about the job from his cousin, who worked as an office boy and whose boss needed a driver for his family. It would not be a company job, unfortunately. Those were the best kind, with all sorts of perks and bonuses, and best of all, membership to a union that prevented you from getting fired easily. Instead, he would be hired directly by the boss's family. But they were good people, his cousin said, and would pay well. Raju, or Rangappa, heard this out with a sense of reserve. If he got the job, his cousin would be sure to earn a tip, and the promise of that was bound to make any boss look good.
Yeah, thank you, Lavanya. You want to go on a little bit more?
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, if we have the time, I will. He was to go interview immediately with the boss's wife, a Mrs. Chowdhury. His heart sank at the news. His father, also a driver, had once worked for a Mrs. Chowdhury. He had taken the young Rangappa, or Raju, to see her, hoping to receive a gift for his son, some money perhaps, or even a packet of biscuits. Rangappa remembered standing with his father on the steps of a large house, not daring to sit, waiting for Mrs. Chowdhury to emerge for her ritual round of morning shopping. He remembered a formidable woman, clad in silks and jewelry, and with a round red bindi on her forehead, so large it seemed to swallow him up. His father presented him. She ignored him and told his father to hurry up with the car. Rangappa, soon to be Raju, had never been more scared in his life. He wished he could turn his cousin down. He decided he didn't like the sound of the job, the other Mrs. Chowdhury's voice resonating frighteningly through the ears. And besides, he really didn't want to be beholden to his cousin, whom he suspected of harboring evil designs on his younger sister. Far better to say no to his cousin, to this Mrs. Chowdhury. Far better indeed to spend his time on getting his younger sister married off and safe. But he didn't have a choice. His salary had to support his parents, his sister, his wife of 4 years, and their baby daughter. The driving job he had right now paid enough to feed any two of them after deducting his daily bus fare to and from work. They were all, always, a little hungry. This new job, this Mrs. Chowdhury, offered much more, at least according to his cousin.
Beautiful, Lavanya. A very keen observer of life, I can see. And let me just ask you about your book and your writing before we move on to Varun. So your first book has been a collection of short stories, yes, and this one a full novel. So how has your journey been? How has the transformation been to you as a writer?
I thought it would be easy. I thought the difficult thing would be the first book, and I thought the second book would just happen like that. But I didn't realize that writing short stories is completely different from writing a novel. So it was almost like I had to learn the process of writing the novel from scratch. In a short story, you've got 20 pages, and normally it's the intersection of a character in a situation. And how that situation resolves it pretty much forms the structure of the short story, and you kind of can take a 360-degree look at the important issues of the character's life. But in a novel, you have, in the first place, 300 pages. You have to have a character who grows and changes, situations that keep changing, and you have to find a character who you're happy to live with for 300 pages. And that is a completely different kind of enterprise. It's a much larger canvas. So I spent the first 2 years messing up. Okay, I kind of wrote all kinds of things that I could never use, and I had to stop doing that. Then I spent another 2 years trying to write some other novel and trying to fit it into this novel. Also a mistake. So I spent a lot of time making every mistake you possibly can. And then over a 3-year period, The Hope Factory was written as it is today. So this just, I have to say, I did not plan for, took me by surprise. And it was a real journey of learning, a whole jump up again from writing the short stories. But luckily I had a patient publisher and a patient agent, so it slightly worked out. But I'm just hoping that book 3 goes like in 2 months. That's all I'm giving it. No more, several years again. Never doing that again. So,
well, we'll hope so too. We really look forward to your next book coming out much sooner.
Thank you.
And now Varun, let's see what Anu Auntie has to say to us.
Okay, I'm going to read out 2 small chapters. The first one is called Business Lessons from Aunties. So the situation is basically Anu Aunties managed to take me grocery hunting one day, and what happens after that? So we landed at the grocery store, and the vendors alerted each other on seeing Anu Auntie. They threw off their smoke, stopped lazing around, and got ready for the duel. How much were the onions? Anu Auntie asked an innocent-looking vegetable vendor. 20 rupees, madam, but for you 15 rupees. Joking or what? Pack 2 kgs for 8 rupees, she said triumphantly. But madam, before the poor guy could say anything else, Anu Auntie had already moved on to the fruit vendor. Apples for how much? Only 30 rupees, madam. What? Hey, yes, madam. Packet for 12, not a rupee more. But madam, after successfully killing every vendor in sight, we finally got to an auto. Koramangla, Anu Auntie said. 100 rupees, the auto guy replied cockily. The next thing I knew, Anu Auntie had complained to the nearest traffic constable, who charged the poor soul with a considerable fine. We were now in his auto on the way to Koramangla for only 20 rupees. As a kid, I would always get pissed when my aunt or mom bargained with the vegetable vendor or the auto guy, or with every other person possible. I'm pretty sure most of you must have gone through this as well, and have been embarrassed by your mom or your aunt trying to save that last rupee on everything. In my younger days, I thought that this was unnecessary. But now that I run my own business, I realize I wasn't paying close attention. You see, the aunties of India have mastered the fine art of negotiation and could easily give Donald Trump a run for his money. I think the greatest MBA school is observing your mom or aunt haggle with the vegetable vendor and trying to learn the tricks of the trade. Not only do they get the guy to sell the onions at a far lesser price, they convince the vendor that he's made money. So the greatest skill any entrepreneur should have is the art of negotiation. And to learn this art, you don't need to go to a business school. Refer to the nearest auntie around you and observe her closely. If you can implement even 10% of her mojo in which she bargains, then you will be hitting your first million in no time. So the next time you overhear your auntie saying, that and all is okay, but how much discount will you give? Pay attention, pay very close attention.
Well, that really was a nice bit. And do you want to read a little bit more? There is a bit more time.
So this is a scene where I was invited to a kitty party. A kitty party was being organized, and this time it was my mom's turn to host it at our place. These parties are like the Cricket World Cup, where every nation gets to host it once. The kitty party was coming back to our house after a long time. My mom's minions were in full flow that day. They had made the house look like it had just been built yesterday. Mom did all the cooking, as was a ritual in all kitty parties. Because even if one of the aunties found out that the food had not been cooked by the lady of the house, it could lead an immediate ouster from the gang. And no auntie wanted that. These parties are a great place to be for anyone with an appetite for gossip. Whose husband is earning more, whose kids are doing well, who's bought the latest diamond earrings, etc. You'll get all the answers in these kitty parties. Usually the kitty parties are meant only for aunties, but my mum and Anu auntie specifically insisted that I stayed for this one time. Hi Neetu, Anu auntie screamed as she hugged Neetu auntie, as they were long sisters. Both of them hated each other. You see, Anu auntie's husband was now working under Neetu auntie's husband, and even though both started at the same time in the same company. Are Smita, nice earrings, yeah? Where you got? Rupa auntie inquired. Smita auntie's husband was in the customs department, and all the ladies suspected foul play. Oh, this paneer is just melting in my mouth, Yapu. Teach me also, na? Usha auntie said, praising mom's culinary skills. Hey, the paneer is from Nilgiris, yeah. The gossip continued and more aunties began to pour in. Shivama, our maid, was running around carrying sharbat for everyone. Music from Karan Johar's films were blaring from this music system, and there were all these aunties wearing fine saris and expensive jewelry. The peace of my house had evaporated, and the innocent walls were forced to hear the darkest secrets of every auntie. Some aunties noticed me, some did. Sitting idle, a funny comparison came to my mind. A kiddie party actually resembled an engineering classroom. So, first, you have the cool aunties, whose husbands are the top honkos of big companies. They form their own separate gang, and they deride everyone in sight. They consider the current kiddie party too unworthy of their attention and are always on the lookout for a higher social circle. Then there are the drama queens. The sole aim in these parties is to vent their frustration about their husbands, their children, and shed a tear or two in the process. And then come the gossip girls. These are the aunties who are the lifeblood of all kiddie parties. They have information about anything and everything. They're the walking, talking Google search engines for the kiddie party. And last but not the least, there's one ringleader. It's not a declared position, but everybody respects that one major auntie. That auntie in this case happened to be our very own Anu auntie. Thanks.
Very well, Varun. Now, let me just ask you your question before we move on to Aditya. See, though your book has a lot of humor in it, there is also a lot of angst that's kind of masqueraded as humor. And I'm sure your book is a runaway success with the youth. So, what was your connect with the youth? Why do you think youngsters who never read anything actually took to your book and connected with it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for us youngsters is that parents in society tend to decide our lives. Our lives never get decided by ourselves. You study in a school, and then you've decided which college you have to go to. You suddenly know which exams you have to take next, then you have to go for an MBA, then suddenly they tell you this is the girl you have to marry. There is not a moment where we get to think about our own lives for ourselves. A lot of kids have a lot of dreams, a lot of aspirations, a lot of passion. Nobody just wants to be an engineer, or nobody just wants to be a doctor. There are a lot of people who want to be artists. There are a lot of people who want to be photographers, filmmakers, whatnot. But there are people like Anu aunties in everyone's life who are always the obstacle. You say, why would you want to go against the system? Get a job, get a regular life, get married, and then repeat the whole process. So I think a lot of kids connected where all of them had this Anu auntie in their life, which could be in form of anything. That didn't allow them to really do what they wanted to do. I think at the end of it, when you're finally on your deathbed and you look back at your life, you shouldn't regret and say that I did not live a life that I wanted to live. I lived a life that somebody else wanted me to live, that my parents wanted me to live, or my friends wanted me to live, or my society wanted to live. So I think the real connect here is that it's telling all the kids out there, screw it, just become rebels, go and do what you really want, because 30 years down the line, what really matters is, are you happy? And you'll only be happy if you do what you love and if you do what you believe in.
Absolutely agree with you. And actually, before we move on once again, I just have a small question here. Why does your book say that it's fiction? It's actually a true story, remember?
Yeah, because they would have to validate everything from Anu auntie, all the smaller bits. So apparently when you do that, I may get into trouble.
Absolutely,
so I suggest
that's a very
whatever
valid
works,
reason, Anu auntie doesn't want to be,
And she's happy, she's a star.
She's a star.
I told her that they're going to make a Star Plus serial based on the book, and that's all she needed to know.
Yeah, Anu auntie is happy and we are happy. And Aditya, would you like to read a little bit from your book?
It had all started on a day at the end of last year's summer. Javed had been sitting on the steps of the Jama Masjid, sipping Ruh Afza dissolved in soda and ice. Heat swam in waves around him, and people hurried to and fro with frowns on their brows. The boy at the drink stall was doing good business, Javed thought idly. His head was dizzy from the heat, but he liked this feeling. The heat washing over him, sinking into him, burning his skin and soul. Everything seemed simplified in this state. The cares of the day turned to small things, and worries melted away. His mind wandered from thought to thought, the red sandstone stairs baking under him, and the drink icy cold as he rolled it in his mouth. Ruh Afza literally meant augmenter of the soul. It was a cooling essence that had been concocted by a Delhi physician following the old code of Hippocrates and Avicenna. It had been in use for 100 years, but the soda salts never stocked it when he was a child. They used to sell only fresh lime soda. But now, in this new millennium, with the rebirth of Delhi, they were selling blackcurrant, blueberry, and even Ruh Afza soda. 100 years old and entirely new. His culinary adventures began that evening when he trickled some of the soda onto the lamb curry and presented it to his grandmother, who promptly spat it out, along with the dentures. Javed became more careful after that. He started by copying his grandfather's restaurant recipes at home, but he began tweaking the amounts of the ingredients used. He would decrease the number of onions, or increase the amount of curd, or change the mix of the garam masala. Sometimes he would take out a portion of the dish and perform more exotic experiments on it. He secretly started watching TV programs that showcased different cuisines late in the evening after Khan Mia had left the house, taking extra care to avoid leaking any hint of his plan. Inspired by the new age cooking techniques he saw on TV, he bought some cheese, a little bottle of olive oil, and another one of soya sauce with his pocket money. Sorry. He couldn't help but feel that mixing these with his grandfather's traditional recipes would work, if only he could get it right. Fusion, as the lady chef with the ample bosom has said on TV. But the process wasn't easy for Javed. There were no books he could refer to, or anyone's advice he could seek for his culinary experiments. And it all had to be done on the sly. Moreover, some of these ingredients, these flavors and tastes, had been inaccessible to his ancestors. The heady aromas of rosemary and thyme, the warm tang of oregano and olives. Some had been ignored because of lineage and beliefs. Wines and spirits were, of course, shunned, and he didn't even dare try those. But he didn't have to. There was already more than enough for him to sample, to discover. He felt like he was exploring a giant uncharted ocean, delving down forbidden and unexplored paths. And it thrilled him to the core.
Yeah, wonderful. I think for a debut book, you have really got a grip on the narrative and the observations on life come through quite beautifully. I was quite surprised that it's your first novel. Okay. Before we ask you your question, can we take a few questions from the audience? Maybe I can see some of them wanting to try the chart or something. So maybe they can ask us the questions they have and then move on. Any questions from the audience?
Okay, this is for all three of you. The literary fraternity is pretty much nasty to... I'm here. Okay. The literary fraternity is pretty much, okay, for lack of a better word, nasty to new authors, first-time authors in the popular genre. So I'm sure you guys get a mix of both good as well as bad feedback. Now, how do you take the good feedback and how do you react to the negative feedback that you get?
Okay.
And I don't want a politically correct answer. Tell me what you actually do.
Okay. So I've had a strange experience. Most of the people who are not reviewers, when they read my book, they compliment me on, it's good language, it's well written, I love the characters. And they usually talk about some specific character they loved. When the reviewers read it, they say, hey, it was a very breezy read, like a good commercial fiction written by, I am a graduate from Rupa's table. I'm like, did they? I mean, that's great. That's great to know. I am happy to be in that stable, as they mention it. But it seems too generic. And mostly I deal with it with confusion. And okay, yeah. And it seems very different from what people who are not reviewers tell me about it. So I don't know. I'm trying to navigate this terrain. But frankly, it's my first book. I'm happy when people read it. I'm happy when people enjoy it. And let's see where that takes us.
The moment when a book is published, and this has now happened to me twice, it's extremely unnerving. When I'm writing, I'm not really thinking about the reader. I'm the only reader I'm writing for. So it's a very, very, very private exercise. And then suddenly, there is this incredibly private thing that you've done that gets taken away and thrown out into the world. And so it's a bit, and I'm going to use a vulgar metaphor here, but this is exactly what it feels like. It's like having your private sexual moment videotaped, put on YouTube, and having everyone comment on your performance. So that is actually how it feels, and nothing really, I think, can prepare you for someone else's response to your writing. So having said that, so I tend to dance very nervously around reviews. I don't read them as they come. I wait for a right psychological moment internally to look at them. I tend, because I'm my own worst critic, I tend not to believe the brilliant reviews. I tend to take the bad reviews a little more to heart, naturally, because I'm like, yeah, I knew it was a terrible book, that kind of thing. But what happens after a couple of months, okay, when all the dust is settled, is that there are some reviews that stay with you. And those aren't always the ones that say, oh my God, this was brilliant, or oh my God, this was crap. It's usually the more moderated ones that say, in this part, this book was brilliant, and here's where she could have worked a little harder. Because that's the kind of criticism that's really well thought out. And that actually becomes a help. Because that's like having someone who's a fantastic reader really give a very thoughtful response to your writing. And that happens so rarely. I mean, out of, say, 20 reviews, maybe 1 or 2 are the kind of reviews you say, wow, that is a really thoughtful reader. And those reviews are gold. They're really precious. Because their criticism is valid, usually, and their encouragement is real.
I generally get my friends to review it, because that really helps. They write a lot of friendly reviews. I'll probably get assaulted if some literary critic was to read my book. So, and the best part is, you can't in fact get any reviews anymore. You need to chase these people. It's damn difficult to get reviews out of them. So half the time you're spending just chasing to get reviews. So I think your question should be, can you get a review, rather than looking for bad reviews. So the most important part is, when you do get a review, they look at the title. They know that, okay, this is not some major novel that he has to worry about. He's going to look at it as a pop fiction manner. And there are so many novels out there in the market that have sold millions of copies, and they have such horrendous writing style and horrendous language. So obviously we get saved, right? Because they've already set the bar. So critics are like in movies, right? You see a movie like, you see a really popular, like Chennai Express, it got 4 stars in Times of India, right? So it's become like that. So now it's gauged as to how popular your book is, and you'll get more stars based on that. So it really does not matter. Trust me, there's no literary element or anything in this. But I managed to get 3 or 4 stars. So if Chennai Express can get 4 stars, right, out of 5, man, my book should receive 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, I mean, that's what my take on this is.
Hi, my name is Varun, and excuse me. I want to ask you, when you start writing a novel, do you first put a structure and then start filling in the blocks, or you first start writing and see how the structure evolves?
That's for me?
For all of you.
Okay, I wrote the title first. So that then I knew that, I need to write a book based on the title. Because a good title will sell. So I wrote the title, and then that's what actually got me part of the deal. Because I wrote the title, and I sent it to the publisher saying, this is what my book title is. Will you be publishing it? They said, yeah, we love the title. So send us the manuscript. So then I knew, okay, fine, the title works. So then write a book based on the title. So yeah, sometimes your book may be really shitty, but if it has a great title, all you got to do is just get the guy to buy it. After that, what he does with it really does not matter to the publisher or the author. So as long as you get the guy to buy it, that's what matters. So the title works. I mean, even if you write a really shitty book, but put a great title, that'll be enough.
So my question is to the other 2 writers. What about your titles? How did you think them up? Yeah? Did you think them up before or after you wrote the book?
So, I mean, I think his method is probably the best method, because it sounds fun and workable. My title came up after the book was written. And I was actually in the pool. I mean, I'd written about like 2 or 3 pages of titles. None of them worked. And I was actually doing laps in the pool when suddenly The Hope Factory came up as the title. So,
So basically you need to go for a swim, right?
I do a lot of my thinking in the pool. This is true.
So I've had the opposite experience that Varun has had. So when I thought of the title, somewhere in the middle of the book, I loved it. It's catchy, boomtown. I repeated it a few times. And one of the persistent themes I've seen across reviewers is that the title is crap. It doesn't explain what the book is. It's very confusing. And yeah, so that's how my title story has gone. But to answer your question, actually, I write it like an engineer, unfortunately. I write the structure. I sometimes even make Excels with my plot devices. I don't know if it works, but it helps me keep everything in my head. So
That's where the problem is. 4 years of engineering I studied, they didn't teach me Microsoft Excel.
Oh.
4 years of engineering and no Microsoft Excel. So yeah,
we should sync up.
Yeah, hi. My name is Piyush. I want to know how important marketing is for a first-time author, and if it is, how one should go about it.
Everything, man. Marketing is your book. Like I said, content really does not matter. You need to market the hell out of it. It should be on Facebook, it should be on Twitter, it should be everywhere. It should be screaming your book. You should be so shameless. You should put 3 Facebook posts about your book every day for 3 months, right? And you have to. Because no publisher really cares about marketing your book. It's only the author that is directly responsible for marketing the book. And in today's day and age, when there's so many books coming, right, you have to put your book out there. And the only way you're going to do that is effective marketing. Marketing, calling all your journal friends, telling them to write about you, like the whole chasing the reviews thing. Telling all your friends to share the Facebook post, taking out Facebook ads, Google SEO, Google AdWords. I know all of this sounds completely non-author-like, but this is what you need to do. And the worst part is that there's no publisher behind you who will actually help you out with this. So if you want to get a bang in the market with your first book, and if you think it's even decently readable, go out there and market the hell out of it.
Okay, so can I give an alternate story? When the red carpet came out, I did not have a publisher in India. I had a printer. Because this came in out of the UK. That good man printed 2,000 copies, and he called me 3 days after publication to say it had sold out. The book was on the bestseller list for 2 years with zero marketing effort. So I would say write the book, because if you're a writer, you're a writer. If you're a marketing guy, you're a marketing guy. Maybe you're good at both. But if you're a writer, write first.
See, the difference
and
you
write
had good
well.
content, no? You had good content. You had good content in your book. What do I do?
I bet
so
you
I need
have
to market.
good content.
So yeah.
Am I allowed to hit a panelist?
Yeah, sure, of course.
My next question is for Varun. When you talked about Google searching about the format of writing your novel, did you actually stick to it?
Yeah, I did. The double spacing. Seriously. It said use single and double space. I really didn't want to use any spacings. And it said the publisher will reject your manuscript if there's no double space. And it really makes a novel really long, and you find it very difficult to read. You're only used to single space. I was like, who in the world would want to read double space?
Didn't it restrict your thoughts since the book was on your life?
No, so I wrote everything and then one click double space.
I'll tell you a problem I had. So, I'd been writing for a while. This is my first published novel, but I've written before. And I always use double quotes instead of double space, but double quotes. And then, when it finally went to the publisher, and Kaushalya, my editor, and she's changing, not she, but the person working with the Shohini, she's changing every quote to single quote, right? And she misses some, and then, I'm trying to catch them again when I'm reading it after that. And then my dad comes and tells me, yeah, of course, nobody uses double quotes nowadays. And I'm like, you knew that? You could have told me when I was writing it. So, yeah, single quotes, people. Does it work in US?
Well, let me ask Aditya his question about his book before we take more questions from the audience. Aditya, in your book, you do explore a lot of the transition, a lot about the transition that India is going through. Both inside families, at the familial level, and also at a broader, socio-cultural context. Can you talk a bit about that? I mean, what made you, choose this as a topic and weave a novel around it?
Right. So I think part of it comes from what Varun was talking about, right? That this transition is something felt very keenly by youngsters, right? And the reason it is so is because in many ways the things we want to do and the things our parents want us to do, and maybe they wanted to do themselves, are not congruent, right? The thing is, this is part of a broader theme, right? We are today going through a process of urbanization, a process of changing job roles, a process of changing gender roles, a process of living in different kind of family units, a process of changing way in which we are getting educated, right? The idea of going to a different city and living in a dorm and studying in college and university, it was not as prevalent as you think, right? Most people did study while staying at home. It's a massive change, and we don't actually have good cultural examples to follow, because we mostly follow the Western cultural milieu, and they went through these changes maybe 100 years back. Right? We do not have good examples. We don't have stories about this. Right? We have stories which deal with people who are struggling at the margins of society, and we have some stories about celebrities and so on. We don't have too many stories which deal from an urban perspective with this transition. But it is something that really, really, which concerns me, which concerns, I think, my readers. And that's what I wanted to write about.
All right. Well, very relevant. I think that's what India is, especially India is going through, I feel. Most of these transitions that Varun talks about and the restrictions that the society puts on an youngster, probably it's very India-specific than, anywhere in the rest of the world.
So I think it's India-specific today. I think a lot of countries have gone through it, actually. And if I stayed in East Asia for a long time, right? So I was in Singapore, and I visited a lot of East Asian countries. And they have gone through it very recently. So you can actually see different timelines, right? Different life cycle moments quite clearly. And that gives you, it starts hitting your eye when you come back, right? And to some extent, my book, what I try to do is this broader theme. I'm trying to symbolize that struggle within the family between someone who wants to innovate on the recipes that his grandfather has been carrying on for generations as traditional recipes. And here's something I've read in history, right? You'll be surprised at how recent traditions are. Almost everything we think of as traditional is probably just 100 years old. And 100 years is not very old. The Empire State Building was almost built 100 years back.
So any more questions from the audience?
Yeah. You are in the heart of IT companies. Any tips to writing IT books or the technical books in a frictional style?
Technical books?
In a frictional style.
Yeah, actually, my book is a little technical book. It's about entrepreneurship in a fictional style. But if you're writing books to get girls, you will not get girls. That's one thing very, very sad about Indian. I mean, unlike the West, authors are like at the very lowest rung of anything related to celebrities. So I don't know if I'm the right guy to give you much advice on writing. I think she'll be able to give you more genuine advice on that.
I don't know about genuine, but I think Bangalore is a city where 3.5 million people do honest work, and 3.5 million people write about those other people. So, I think you're going to have to... I haven't ever written a technical book disguised as fiction. I think you're going to be your own personal writing journey to figure this out. Or, excuse me, I think I have an expert right here.
So I read this book once. It's a Japanese book, and you can get the translation quite easily. It's pretty famous. So it's written by a housewife, right? And the main character is a housewife who becomes this kind of caretaker of the house of the mathematician, right? And the book has a lot of math, and it's about the love of math, but it's their fictional story. So you should pick up that book. I've forgotten the name. You can search for it. So it can be done. In fact, I want to write a love story of a computer engineer, but maybe some of that.
Too much of it.
Excuse me, I have a point to add in this question. I read a book on HTML long back, and the author has put his personal photos in between the text. So that made it very interesting. So that is one idea. Apart from that, we keep reading jokes and things like that as forwards that you can put in between. So there's a technical book, there's a humorous, so it's a kind of...
you know what? That's a very interesting point that you just made. And any more questions, or shall we move on to our... there is? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to predict the future by asking you a question. Any three of you, any one of you planning to take up writing on a full-time professional basis so you can earn your living out of it and nothing else?
Well, I did that from my first book on, so this is indeed what I do. And I don't think I earn my living out of it. I think the percentage of writers who can actually make a decent living writing are so few as for it to not be the norm. I think if you choose to write, you choose to write because you love it, not because you're going to live the good life on it. You're not.
Unless you're Amish Tripathi, you're not going to make money through writing. Not at all. And do not write to make money. Do not write to get famous. Do not write to become a celebrity. None of this happens. Do not write for any of these reasons. Write because you have a story to tell, and you probably want a few people to read about it, and that story gets to a few more people. You cannot make a living out of writing in India. At least not until you sell at least 1 million copies or so, and regularly with every book that you write. You cannot make a living with writing.
Yeah, the economy is terrible.
Hi guys, I'll put this question to Vani and the others. It's basically, on a very general level, we had there was a discussion on Friday evening, regarding this. So how would you guys look at commercial writing as opposed to purely literary writing? Where should you make the compromise? Should you sell books or should you write books? Simple question.
So for me, I write literary fiction, and I have no control over whether they sell or not. If they sell, it's an act of God, and it's an act of publisher, and it's an act of reader, none of which I have any control over. So I just focus on my writing. That's it.
See, first of all, I find this divide between literary writing and commercial writing very interesting. It's a very subjective thing. You show Satyajit Ray to a guy who's probably a driver or someone. He's going to hate it. He's going to hate the very shit out of it. But if you show Chennai Express to him, he'd love it. He'd love the movie, right? So art is super subjective. There is no good art. There is no bad art. There is no good book. There is no bad book. For some, it may be the best thing in the world. For others, it may be a piece of crap, right? So obviously, unless you win the Booker, everyone else is on the level playing field. So I really don't think we should come here on a literary platform and judge what is what is good literature, what is bad literature. I think we are all assembled here just to talk about books, right? Now, whether they're good or bad, that's for everyone else to discuss. Yeah, and obviously we're not going to discuss whether our books fall under the good book category, which is the literary category, or the bad book category, which is the commercial fiction category. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I have a question.
Yeah, I'll just add one point to it. I think if I had to give a tip, this is how I do it, right? Try to write the book that you would want to read, right? And that could be anything. If you like Alistair MacLean and Agatha Christie and you want to write crime fiction, you love reading crime fiction and you want to write it, you should. Right? I love reading graphic novels and comics. I want to write those, right? And there are two very sensible reasons for it. One, as we have been telling you, it doesn't really make money. So it's not that you can really, and you can't control it. So you can't really make a very business-based decision, right? So most likely you have to write something which you are okay being cooped up in a room with for 6 months, 8 months, 4 years, it depends, right? So take the decision based on what you can do for a long time, right? And then if it sells, it sells. But frankly speaking, saying that literary fiction sells less or commercial fiction sells more, that's not true, because actually there's a surplus of supply in every genre, right? So your book may sell, it may not sell. So you have to write something you want to read.
Yeah. I don't let society judge if Ayn Rand is better or Chetan Bhagat. Let the people judge that.
Okay, I have a question. This is your first book. While going through the process, did you think about your second book, or did you ever think that depending on the response that you get on this book, you're going to begin the next one, or were you already thinking about it? Or like Varun said that maybe, if the title is good and it sells and the publisher doesn't care what's inside it and all that. what do you think about your future projects? I mean, how
Yeah,
do
so
you go
I
about
didn't think this book would get published in the first place, so I never thought about the second book. But when it got released, it did really well. Then I thought that all I have to do is just add part 2 to the whole title. That's it. And now I just have to think of a book with just part 2 in it. That's it. And it works out. I mean, I'm thinking in a very business way, but yeah. So yeah, I am already signed on for the second book, and the sequel is coming out probably in Jan. And again, it's the same process. Think of the title and then go at it.
I've already started work on my third book. So let's see where that journey goes.
Yeah, I mean, for every book I write, for every story I write, there are 10 more I'm not writing, right? So there are enough books to write. It's just a matter of finding time. Matter of giving that time as well. So I've also signed my second book already with Rupa, which is not a sequel, unfortunately. But let's see where that goes. But it usually helps, right? Especially because sales and marketing is something quite soul-crushing often. So there's a writer, Terry Pratchett. He's very famous in the UK. And he said the only reason he writes is because he wants to get away from marketing his previous book. So he starts writing his next one.
Totally agree with that. You know, you do enough book publicity, your soul turns to Kim Kardashian. That's what happens.
Yeah, my question goes to all the panelists. So, as an author, what pleases you more? Your book selling, like crossing 1 million mark, 10 million mark, and getting no reviews, or getting those 1,000 critical reviews and with a less of sale? So,
for
your
me,
take on that.
Looks like this is probably the last question we are going to take, and take it away, writers.
So just to answer your question, there was this gentleman who emailed me. He said he was 55 years old. He was working in a government job. He said that he read my book. He got it from his son, which was a huge shock for me because it's not intended for someone like him to read it. But then he said he read the book and he really enjoyed it a lot. He said for 30 years he's been working in a government job and he always wanted to be a painter. But painting then was not considered a profession nor anything remotely manly or anything like that. So he left his passion, he left his dreams. He read my book, he found the language simple, so he was able to finish the whole book. And then he realized that, he's already 55, he probably just has 10, 15 years more left in his life. And he's looked back and he's realized that he hasn't done anything in his life that mattered to him. He's done everything that just mattered to society and everybody else. So he said that 1 month after reading the book, he quit his government job and he started painting again. And he sent me the first painting that he made, which was just a small... So that was it. I mean, no amount of money or no amount of reviews or anything is going to replace that, man. When you get someone like that from the heart telling you something like that, I think that's when you know you're successful. Not if you've sold 1 million copies or not if you've got 5 stars.
Totally endorse that story. I mean, that's an amazing story he's told, which is the lesson is do what you love and do it well.
So I would say it depends whether you're writing for the craft or for the story, right? And both are equally viable and both are equally to be respected. If you're writing for the story, what matters is the effect the story has had, right? If you're selling 1 million copies, that clearly means at least 10,000 people loved your book and spread the word, right? And that's great. So, in fact, I have had a similar experience where this man from a small city, he writes to the Facebook page, my book is about people starting a restaurant, and he says he has recently left his job and he started a restaurant, and he found this book, and it has given him lots of courage, and that's great, right? But then I'm writing for the story. If I was writing only for the craft, right, then maybe I do care what other masters think. But yeah, I'm writing for the story.
Well, that was really a very exciting discussion, and if I can sum it all up, we have agreed on many counts. That is, if you want to be a writer, do it for the love of it, not for money, not for fame. It may or may not follow, and we have also disagreed on some things. That is, should writers be the sellers? Should you promote or not? So that's a huge debate and a discussion. That's an ongoing discussion in the literary circles. But with that, I hope you all enjoyed the session. Thanks for being with us, and thank you, panelists.